So, okay, so we are
Yeah, it's a
live.
podcast.
All right, so guys, this is episode number 178. I am here with Leigh Richardson, and I will be the first to admit that Leigh and I are only Facebook friends. That's how we came across each other. But I know for a fact that we have a lot of JKD colleagues in common. So, Leigh
Sure.
Richardson, welcome to the Jeet Kune Do Dialogues.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, is that the correct pronunciation of your name?
Leigh,
Yeah.
Mr. Leigh.
Okay. Because you know what's funny? I don't. You probably don't remember this, but and this was on a Facebook thing, maybe even a year ago. But you commented. I realized immediately that you were from England, so I knew you were a guy.
Right.
But
Yeah, okay.
I think it was Gunnar Davis in Texas. Gunnar saw the spelling of your name and figured that you were a girl. You probably don't remember that. But I thought, oh man, I thought it's so different sometimes between us here in America and you
Yeah.
guys in the UK. I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. Do y'all have the same degree of nonsense that we have between the JKD factions, like we've seen in here on Facebook in the past couple of weeks?
Um, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, it's all kind of the same thing, really, isn't it? I
Yeah,
mean, it's all internet based now, really. So,
I see.
um, it kind of becomes centric to what you're exposed to, and Facebook is a good medium for that. So
Hmm.
you start. It makes it more international, I suppose. I mean, um, yeah. I mean, my exposure to Jeet Kune Do is more around what I think the camp is concepts. So
Right.
and that's my kind of heritage, if you like.
Hmm.
So, but then again, I'm quite intrigued by the whole the Facebook group that you run. So that then becomes a bit more international,
Yeah,
I suppose.
yeah. And you came along when? How long have you been involved in JKD?
Um, well, it goes quite far back, really. I I started to get interested in JKD probably around about the age of maybe 12 or 13.
Okay.
So I've just turned 50 this year. Um, so I was watching Andy Wilson's podcast the other today,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so I think I'm ages with him. So he's
Right.
71, I think. So,
Okay.
um, but so there's quite a lot of similarities along the way he kind of not the art so much, but the sort of progression
Yeah.
um, in a lot of ways. But yeah, I started doing karate probably in my around about 11, 12, and then I got into JKD. A friend of mine started renting Bruce Lee videos,
Hmm.
um, and that kind of spiked my interest a little bit. But probably where we got involved in the JKD itself was I'd been going on about it at home quite a bit about Bruce Lee and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
my mum kind of knew about Bruce Lee. She likes all that kind of films and stuff like that.
Cool
So
mom.
yeah, she likes all the action movies and stuff, and she was telling me about the Bruce Lee movies that she'd seen. But it was in the newspaper. There was so I'd been talking about Jeet Kune Do, and she spotted something in the newspaper, our local newspaper. And she goes, "Is this what you're talking about?" So we had a look, and it turned out that there was going to be a demonstration in Aberdeen, where the
Mhm.
main city near where I live, and it was in the conference centre. And Jeet Kune Do was listed as one of the arts that was going to be demonstrated in this martial arts demonstration. So she bought me a ticket basically, and we went up and we kind of watched it. And it turned out that it was Rick Young that was doing
Right.
the demonstration. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was doing this demonstration, And you know, I was like, I couldn't believe, because I'd been looking at Jeet Kune Do and I bought the Tao of Jeet Kune Do. So all my experience up until that point had been really just the books. You know, we got the training methods and the Tao. Me and my friend, and we'd been trying to work out, you know, the Baizhong stance and the straight lead and all that kind of stuff. But this demonstration took place, so we went to see it, and then after the demonstration, they all had like kind of tables around the sort of perimeter. So I was hunting out Rick's table. I just wanted to go and speak to them to find out how to go and train with them, because I couldn't believe that it was in Scotland. I mean, it was something that was, to me, it was almost like it was only in America. I didn't even know. So I was so kind of amazed by that to start with. Anyways, it turned out I found the table, and I started to speak to Rick, and it turned out that he was in Edinburgh. And I'm like, you know, bear in mind, I'm only like 18 years old. I didn't really have a car. I wasn't really working, that kind of thing. I didn't have very many resources, you know, to go traveling and stuff. He said, but if you stay in Aberdeen, you need to talk to this guy. So he pointed me to this other guy that was sitting at the table, and it turned out to be Pat Davis. So I don't know if you know Pat. I've actually got a picture of you in my academy. We've just started putting up all the photographs, and I think it's 2006. You're at the Inosanto camp. Yeah, picture of you, and Pat is also in this picture. So, so you're in my gym.
I hope I wasn't misbehaving.
No, you were just standing there smiling, so you were all right.
Okay.
So, anyways, to go back to the story, yeah, we got introduced to Pat, and Pat basically invited us to come and train at his group, which was called Aberdeen Martial Arts Group. But it wasn't until maybe a few months later that we managed to turn up, and I got to borrow the car from my parents, and I convinced my brother to come with me. He'd been doing some training with me as well. He kind of got roped into martial arts training, just being the younger brother, so he had really no choice. So we went up, and we drove up to Aberdeen, and we turned up to the class, but we had to wait to the end. So we were kind of watching it through the window of this community centre, and we turned up at the end, and we said, we'd like to join your group, and he couldn't remember me, because it was a few months later, sort of thing.
Right, yeah.
So he's like, no, sorry, it's a closed group. And my brother kind of piped up. He was only 16 at the time, and he kind of said, well, we've just travelled 25 miles to come and see you, and you know, we were under the impression that we could join the group from the demonstration with Rick. And he goes, oh, you travelled 25 miles. And he said, right, come here next Wednesday. And that was the beginning of it. So we turned up the following Wednesday, and we started to train with Pat, and it moved on from there. And now that must have been 1991, kind of time period. So
has your big mouth little brother gotten you in trouble over the years?
Yeah, it's sometimes me though as well. So
okay.
Sometimes I'm the big mouth.
Right. I had asked you about Pete, right?
Yeah.
And you said he was in Houston. He's in Houston right now.
Yeah, he'd moved out with his wife and children to Houston to work for a bit. So he's been out there.
Yeah.
So but he's on his way. He's on his way back now. So
okay.
Yeah. So he's just trying to get the details of that sorted out.
All you British royals, you just love coming to America, huh?
It's good fun.
Yeah. So it went in doing my my research on you and what have you. So two people said they're looking forward to us being able to talk to each other. So one is Tim Becker from the Asano Academy.
Yeah.
And the other is Diana Rathborn of Minnesota. So I'm trying to put all of this together for myself. So then that tells me then that you were part of MKG and also the Inosanto instructor group, correct?
We're not part of MKG. We just have friends there. So Diana's a good friend of ours, and we normally see her when we go to the instructors camp.
I got it.
And we've got on really well since we met Diana.
Yeah.
And she's looked after us and you know, showed us around and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And she's actually been over to Aberdeen. She's done a seminar at our academy. I can't remember what year that was. It must have been maybe 2012 or something like that, 2013.
Okay. Yeah.
So she's been over to us, and she used to come over to Edinburgh to do the Inosanto seminar with Rick when he used to host in Edinburgh. Right. So we've known that, but we're not part of the MKG at all.
Okay.
Really.
Okay.
Our lineage kind of comes from. So we started to train with Pat back in the day, which was Aberdeen Martial Arts Academy, and then Pat started to get to know Mark McFan and Ewan Campbell back probably 98, 99 maybe. And they started to come up to Aberdeen and hold seminars and get involved with the UFA, which is Mark's organization. So that's kind of our lineage there. And then eventually we got put onto the Inosanto program. So we then go into the the Inosanto camps in Marina del Rey. So
okay. And you mentioned that your business association is with your brother. So I wanted to ask you about that because I saw 2 academies associated with you. There's Warriors Training, I think, and then there's Aberdeen Martial Arts Academy. So
Warriors Training.
Yeah,
I don't recognize Warriors Training.
I think somehow Warriors TMA, unless I have my wires crossed, but I thought I saw something associated with you and that group, but Aberdeen Martial Arts Group is that's where you teach, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Aberdeen Martial Arts Group. So what happened was Aberdeen Martial Arts Group was founded by Pat.
Okay.
And he was only a student. He wasn't even an instructor. He was a student of Rick's. And Rick gave him this is way back in the day. He gave him permission to teach a small group of people in Aberdeen as a kind of satellite group to allow Pat to basically practice. Yeah. And you can't practice on your own, so he let him set up a small group. And it kind of grew from there, really. But as you may know, Pat basically passed away in 2010. He got liver cancer, and in my mind, he beat that, and he got a liver transplant shortly after that. And then he was on the road to recovery to that, but he actually passed away from a brain aneurysm, 2010. So his girlfriend at the time, she kind of took over the sort of, I guess, the running of AMAG, but Pat had made me and Peter the sort of 2 top instructors under him. So when Pat passed away, we kind of, I mean, the whole thing could have folded, I suppose, but we were so integrated with the whole thing. After maybe a year or 2, Kaz basically said, "Look, you guys need to run this. You need to take over and continue." So Peter and I basically took over the academy and tried to continue running the academy in the same sort of way as Pat would have envisioned it, sort of thing. Predominantly, it was a Jeet Kune Do academy, and we had different arts that we practiced, obviously to complement that, and we've put our own angle on it now, and we've done a lot with it in the past. It's more than 10 years now, 10, 11 years. So we've done that now. We've recently moved premises actually to 2019, just before COVID. We moved into a new academy, and that's when Peter went over to Houston. Mm-hmm. So I was left with running this new academy, getting it off the ground, right. And and putting it out there and getting the students to travel and generate new students and that kind of thing. So I've done that with my wife and a couple other people. That's helpful to us, like Paul McGregor's one of our top instructors there. Yeah. So it's been really good. It's really made a difference in the area as well.
Yeah. What was that initial transition like, from not being the person actually running, just being an instructor there, to then being transformed into the person running the place?
Yeah, it was quite daunting. I think because the way he trained us, he was almost like an older brother to us. So we were always, we were very respectful to him, but we were always kind of bickering with him as well. So we kind of always, hard to say, we kind of knew what to do because we were so heavily involved with it, in the martial arts, emotionally, everything, the whole thing. So taking it over, we kind of knew the sort of path that it was all about. Okay. But it was still quite, kind of like, this is on us now. We've got to do a good thing. So quite often we'll have a conversation like, we'll maybe reach a milestone, like when we moved to the new premises in 19. We'll kind of have conversations where we'll go, I think Pat would be proud of us, doing what we've done with it. I think it's still in line with where he was trying to take it. But we've put our own flavor on it, and we've obviously got students that don't even know who he is now, So, but in the same sense, we've kept the same sort of theme, or the same MO kind of thing. Yeah. So it was quite daunting, but I think we were well prepared for it. And we had a lot of support. Campbell, in so much as we would have conversations with him, and he would tend to say, he would basically just support us. He would tell us that we're probably doing the right thing, and just to kind of go with the flow of it. And that kind of backing that you get, from somebody like that, kind of lets you understand that you're not making stupid mistakes. Because I don't know if you know Ewan, but if you were making a stupid mistake, he wouldn't hold back. Put it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So Okay. So now you're running the place, and I noticed from photographs that you guys have online. You're affiliated also with Paulson's CSW, correct?
Yeah.
And with Hey Diego and Carlson Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So how did all of that come about? Were you just led into that through maybe McFan or through Rick Young, or how did that come about?
I think basically Mark McFan and Ewan Campbell paved the way for us. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the way it works. You get students that you want to develop, and you give them the opportunities, and as long as they're prepared to do the work, and put in the time and absorb what is being offered, then doors can open for you. And Peter and I trained really hard. We tried to listen and pay attention to people and listen to what they say. So it was natural progression. We started to get making making noises that we wanted to go on to the Inosanto program and train under Guru. We also wanted to follow in the footsteps of going under Ajahn Chai. I felt that there was a lot of value in that.
Yeah.
So, suddenly Ajahn Chai's coming down to Northampton, of all places, and doing seminars, and we're starting to learn from Ajahn Chai. So these opportunities started to present themselves. We stepped in and did the work, paid attention, and trained, and we sat the Ajahn Chai test, the Thai test, the apprentice test. Got beaten up for that.
Yeah.
As everybody knows. And it's a very scary kind of test. I mean, for those that don't know, it's a Thai boxing test, but it's probably worse than a Thai fight, because in a lot of ways the pad man can beat you up, but you're only allowed to hit the pads, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you can't beat him up.
Yeah, it's not a fair fight at all.
It's not a fair fight at all. And it's two horrendous rounds, but what other people might not realize as well, it's the whole weekend. I mean, if it's a weekend seminar for you, I mean, as soon as it starts, they're watching you. Everything's got to be on form. Everything's got to be right. And like I said, if you don't know Ewan, but he can just wind you up. Yeah. So he's telling us that Ajahn Chai's in a bad mood, so you better watch it and stuff like this. And we're like, oh crap, it's like, and so you're on nerves all day for 2 weeks, for 2 days, and then right at the end of it, you go and you do your rounds, and it's like a fight. You've got the cornerman and everything like that. And Mark McFan was my second round.
Oh no!
And for about 3 days afterwards, I had 3 suns. In my vision, when I closed my eyes, I could see like the sun in 3 different places. I think that was concussion, right?
Oh, man.
So we did that.
Yeah.
We did that, and that was really good. It's quite an accomplishment when you do it. You feel really quite good about yourself if you pass it, of course.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years later, we got onto the program. We went down to Bournemouth. Phil Norman used to run a seminar with Guru. I think it was the last one, actually. And Pat takes us over to Guru, and Guru's sitting, with all these, with his suitcase open for the seminar, and his music playing and everything. And he's like, "Yeah, you guys are on the program now." And that was it. And it was like, you don't know if you can jump up and down and go crazy, or you've got to kind of go, "Okay, thank you very much," and walk away, and then go and jump up and down.
Yeah.
So it was really good, and then following that, I mean, I'd met Eric Paulson. We used to go to the seminars. We started doing the seminars in 1994, going down to Edinburgh, and with all the different assistants. I'm sure Simo Paula was one of the assistants at one point, or I was trying to remember last night. I casting my mind back. I can't remember who was the assistant, but Simo was there.
Yeah.
And obviously Guru.
Was it your namesake, Bert Richardson?
No. I think it might. I want to say Tsuyoshi, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure if it was, and it probably isn't. It's too blurry. But after that period, Eric was the assistant for quite a few years. Yeah. So and then you would get to do in Edinburgh. What would happen would be you'd get the Guru Dan's seminar, but Eric would do a 2-hour slot either at the end or the beginning of the seminar. So you get to go in and do some CSW stuff as well. Okay. So it was really good, but I kind of met Eric much more close up one time because Peter and I used to go down to Rick's occasionally, like every sort of month or so we would try to go down to Rick's, and borrow our parents' car, drive down, or Peter eventually got a beat up old little mini car that we would go down in, and we go down. But one time I was down on a training course for work, so I was down for the week in Edinburgh, and I went down across to class just to go to the regular class at Rick's, and Rick was late, and he came in maybe 5 or 10 minutes late, and he goes, "Right, guys, one of my friends from LA is going to take the class tonight," and then in walks Eric. So he took this 2 hour, and it was just a class, but it was an amazing class. It was much more detailed than in the seminar stuff. It was just
Exactly.
And he was teaching us anti-grappling skills. So how to stay on our feet, how to stop being taken down, all that kind of stuff. And it was just amazing. And so I'm going back to tell Peter that, I saw Eric and all this. So we saw Eric about that. That must have been about 97, I think.
Okay.
That class took place.
Yeah.
But years later, Ewan introduced us to the instructors program under Eric. So we became coaches under Eric as well.
Okay.
And then the Hey Diogo stuff. My brother actually went out to LA maybe 2 or 3 years ahead of me. And he got introduced to Hey, and he wanted to be under Hey as a BJJ instructor. So he started to work towards Hey, and then he started to become my brother's professor under for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And then we just used to go and see Hey. So every time we came over to LA, we were out to see Hey as well.
Right. Yeah.
But he's become a really good friend, sort of thing. He's an instructor, but he's a friend of ours as well. You develop these friendships, obviously.
Listening to you tell your origin story, it dawns on me when we do the Facebook squabbling. It dawned on me, and I hate to put it this way, but those other guys, I don't think they're aware of how much people like you and I have put into getting the knowledge. I think, sometimes I wonder if they think that we have not strived for anything. It's like but I'm listening to what you're saying, and then there's so many things that happen. Like you mentioned, you're listening to me talk to Andy Wilson, and there's commonality between you and Andy Wilson. In 1985 in Barbados, I played the role of Rick Young because there was a big martial art demonstration in Barbados, and I was the resident Jeet Kune Do person.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah.
And now the guy, I got one student out of that, Wayne Quinton, who still teaches in Barbados, but who is very close friends with Phil Nurse, right? And with David, what's David's last name? Oyuma? Now I can't remember.
Oh, David Onuma.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. I know David.
You see, so there are all these connections between so many of us, right? But so I have to do something about that because I don't want the importance of that to be lost and to be de-emphasized and replaced by this stupid bickering that goes on. Yeah.
Well, there is a lot of connections, and I think there's a lot of pathways that have crossed. And I mean, it's down from our side. If you want to go into the whole concepts, then Guru's created such a network just simply by giving the art to people and making it open to people and teaching people that all these people make their way he did that poem to the top of the mountain and we're all going different ways sort of thing. But it is very much that, you're talking Barbados, but we're in Aberdeen in Scotland, and then there's London and all the different places, and we all kind of interconnect, and these seminars kind of link us together. So there's a lot of synergy between the different people,
I mean, and I'm not trying to say, for anybody who hears this, I'm not trying to say that those guys have not strived for anything and that they don't have connections. Of course they do, right? But I think that it's easier for us to accept others because that open-mindedness is built in to the way we have always approached things because of Inosanto. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. I mean, I was thinking about this today. I remember, so Rick came up to Aberdeen. I can't remember when. It was ages ago. He did a seminar for our group, Aberdeen Martial Arts Group, and Pat had invited him, and it was in the 90s. Definitely late 90s, and I was at the stage where I was still a beginner, but I was starting to get the hang of different things, and I was finding it a little bit overwhelming to how do you train Kali and then Thai boxing and then trapping and then regular boxing and kickboxing and all these different things, and it's just like, you want 8 days in the week. Because you go from training twice a week to 3 times a week and 4 times a week, and it goes on and on. But eventually, it's like you're training all week, and then that whole process is the next step is to say, well, we need to train 8 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, there isn't 8 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
so you start having to train smart. And at the time, there was this thing: train intelligently, train safely, train smart.
Yeah.
That catchphrase that was going around, and there was different versions of it, but it was basically that.
Mm-hmm.
And in the seminar, I asked Rick how to tackle the problem. So Rick basically said, and this whole thing stuck with me to this day, almost like a principle.
Mm-hmm.
And what it is he said, look for the commonalities between the different systems rather than the differences. Okay, so he said you're not going to put your Thai boxing shorts on and practice your cross for an hour, and then you take your shorts off and put on your boxing shorts and practice the boxing cross for an hour, and then take those shorts off and put your Filipino outfit on and do your panatukan and practice the cross for an hour. Because if you look at the commonality between that, the cross is the cross is the cross between the 3 arts. Now, there may be nuances, but essentially, you don't need to train a boxing cross and a Thai boxing cross and a panatukan cross and a kickboxing cross. You just need to train the cross.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take that principle of looking for the commonalities, then you can apply that to help you understand not only how to get an intelligent training system so that you're not trying to do everything, because you're looking now for commonality between all the different arts so that you now have more time to train.
Right.
But if you take that to another level, you can look for the commonalities between the different systems, right? So this now lets you start to understand that, Thai boxing isn't that different to Silat. Now, that might sort of be a bit of a stretch, but it isn't really, because if you look at some of the throws and the sweeps, they're almost the same.
Mm-hmm.
And you're starting to apply this, looking for the commonalities, looking, to see where things kind of fit in. And again, you can then start to not have to do so much individual training of systems because you're starting to see this synergy between the arts and so on. So my thought today was, I use this principle all the time. I use it at work. I'm a project manager in IT by day. So, and when I'm trying to solve problems, that principle that Rick kind of shared with us way back in the 90s kind of sticks with me.
Right.
In at work, and it helps me solve problems just by condensing things and kind of getting things into a good frame of mind, sort of thing. So I thought today, with all this bickering, it's a Jeet Kune Do principle to me. If we took this Jeet Kune Do principle and turned it in on itself, we could point it at this whole bickering process. And if we start to look at, see, it's a mindset. If you look at the differences between things, if you look at the differences between Thai boxing and Savat and Panatukan and Sutakan, you know, all the different things, you're going to see division, and it's all going to split out.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the commonalities, it kind of brings things together.
Yeah.
So therefore, if you point this whole thing in on ourselves, and let's just say there's two camps. I mean, I know there's different fragmentations within Jeet Kune Do community, but if you take the originals and the concepts, but look for the commonalities, that's a thing that's going to bring the community together rather than looking for the differences, which tends to put you in a mindset of splitting it apart. So therefore, you know, we've all got a Baijong stance, we've all got a Pak Sao, we've all got a Now Tech. So there's more in common with one another than there is different, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's something to bear in mind, I think, between.
Yeah.
I mean,
See,
I don't know what you think about that, but that concept is.
Because of something I was writing earlier, what you just described there, seeking the commonalities and then reducing the amount of time that you would need to spend, that's the daily decrease. You see?
Yes.
When you said, okay, so now I've taken that principle that I learned, that I got from Rick Young, and I've applied it to work in IT. You are now using a philosophical approach to Jeet Kune Do. So, and I bring that up because you'll remember that one of the bickering items was the difference between the physical and the philosophical art.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I don't know if you saw this because I put it up. I think I put it up on Wednesday after the broadcast. But in preparing for the broadcast, I came across a statement by Ted Wong, and I thought to myself, this sounds like something you would hear from Dan and Asano. So I printed it out and I asked people, tell me, who do you think said this? And lo and behold, people say, well, was it Bruce Lee himself? Was it Dan and Asano? Was it Jerry Poteet? And so I realized I should never have said where I got it from. Because if everybody is thinking, well, this sounds like this guy, and then somebody's thinking, no, it sounds like that guy, then it seems to me they all sound alike, which would be the commonality that you were just talking about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, it's just struck me there. If Guru had done that, he wouldn't have made that, I'm going to call it a mistake, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but he wouldn't have said, he would have just put it out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
rather than citing the source in that particular case, that now I know he does do that. He always gives credit where credit's due, and in your conversation with Tim and Andy the other day was kind of covering that a little bit.
Right.
But,
yeah, when Andy talked about,
I think in that case with the statement that you just put up there, you could have just left it there, and you wouldn't have had any idea.
Yeah, yeah. But you know what my hope was? My hope was when people go, oh, Ted Wong said this, they would go, okay, that's it. That's the end of it. Everybody's talking the same way. Everybody's thinking the same things about Jeet Kune Do. No need to bicker anymore. I was hoping to put an end to it once and for all. You know.
I think, yeah, no, and I think a lot of us are probably trying to do that. You know, turning it in on itself, like I was saying to you just a moment
Mhm.
ago, is a good starting point as well. In
Yes.
so much as if you look for what's common amongst the groups rather than what's different, your mindset completely changes.
Yes.
Because you're now looking in a positive way rather than a negative way, in my view. You know, and like I said, you know, we are talking probably nuances rather than major differences
Yes.
between the two.
Yeah.
You know,
And it worries me that people will see us going back and forth over nuances and subtleties, and they'll
yeah,
go, "These guys are nuts." That worries me.
yeah, yeah,
You know, um, you said to Andy in one comment, unfortunately, those that see the gospel as literal cannot see past it or are blinded by it. Stuck on the finger, you might say, he warned us on the biggest platform he had. Do you remember writing that?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Break that
the
break
biggest
that down for everybody.
well, the biggest platform he had was he obviously wanted to use, and this is Leigh that we're talking about now, obviously. The biggest platform, he used his films to, you know, it's been spoken about before about using it to sort of promote Chinese culture and that kind of thing. So getting a Hollywood movie is obviously his largest platform. And to me, the saying about it's a finger, you know, finger pointing to the moon, don't look at the finger, don't look at the signpost, don't look at the obvious, look at the broader picture. So yeah, that's kind of really what I was meaning by that.
Yeah.
You know, he's seen it, he's given his warning almost almost like he's, I mean, he probably wasn't, who knows, but almost warning the dangers of kind of gravitating towards a system. I mean, he was obviously trying to dissolve that in a lot of ways, and just have it as almost like action.
Yeah.
That's the primary thing, right?
Yeah.
So the saying for me, in a lot of ways, people get, you know, it's kind of like a version of can't see the wood for the trees kind of
Right.
thing.
Exactly.
You know, it's I mean, maybe that's oversimplifying it because I think there's a bit more to it than that. But it's kind of along those lines, and quite a lot of people get hung up, you know, like we're, you know, the different communities are bickering over simple and single, that kind of thing, you know, and you know, I mean, the whole thing can just kind of get out of hand a little bit, you know,
Yes.
and kind of miss
Yeah.
the point.
Right.
And that's
And
the
that's what
finger
I'm
pointing to
afraid
the
of.
moon, right?
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
that's kind of what I was saying. That's what I kind of meant there. And obviously he warned us by saying it in his movie, which was the biggest platform he had at the time.
Yeah. The when you talk about the gospel, like when I first read it, I go, yeah, that's like thinking, okay, the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, or the source material for the Tao of Jeet Kune Do is 5, 6, 7 volumes, whatever, of commentaries. Yeah, that's not gospel. That's simply what he did then.
But it's
That's
working notes. My understanding is it's working notes. I mean, we all
yeah,
do it.
yeah.
I mean, I write things down all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If I have you know, I might have a revelation about stuff. I was watching the Paul Vunak podcast that you had with Paul back. I can't remember what it was, maybe a year or two ago.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
And he was talking about how Jeet Kune Do initially was dealing with karate, and then it moved into kickboxing, and that, you know, and now it's moved into dealing with. It's always about taking the Jeet Kune Do man and how he's going to deal with the current problem of combat.
Right.
You know, and I had a real big revelation about that. So I'm writing notes, I'm writing these things down, and it's a big long, but it was just to get it out of my head and just to sort of start to formulate some sort of idea around it so that I could understand what was being said by somebody that's in the know, compared to me. And I wrote it all down. So it looks like, Bruce Lee did the same thing, but then obviously untimely passing. And these notes, if you took my note that I wrote on that podcast, and let's say I was Lee, it's kind of out of context in some respects because it's just a brain dump. Now, I'm not saying that everything that he did was a brain dump, but there'll be a lot of working in there that is maybe just him putting it out of his head so that he can start to formulate an idea around it. Because it's a well-known thing to do. You want to get things out of your head and onto paper so that you can start to process it better. He was into all that kind of stuff, writing his goals down on a piece of paper, seeing it every day and aiming for it and that kind of thing. All that kind of stuff, so I'm not saying all these notes are brain dumps and working notes. I mean, there maybe is some conclusions there and some drive towards a whole curriculum and so on. But to take it as written gospel is not really, for me, it's not really the thing to look at.
I think it's easier for us to look at it that way because we've spent time with Dan and Asano, a guy who, if you say to him, okay, I want you to do a video on Jeet Kune Do, and he goes, okay, he's going to put into that video that you asked him to do on the 21st of May, 2021, he's going to put what's on his mind at that time.
Correct.
You see? So years later, when somebody sees that, they don't understand him, so they don't understand the context in which he said what he said. You and I do, because we know, well, he was talking about back then. Or what happened to be on his mind at the time, which I think that it's dangerous for him because people who don't know him or don't understand him will never get it. And it will lead to them, imagining all this stuff about it. And like, all credit to you, you're watching Paul Vunak's podcast, and as a lesson, not just for entertainment or what have you, but you're learning from what he has to say.
No, absolutely.
Right. As opposed to people who are like, oh, Paul Vunak, well, he's had some episodes in his life. Let me see how I can criticize him. Or it's just so ridiculous.
Absolutely. I mean, you've got to take, without going too much into the whole absorb what is useful and all that kind of stuff, that is kind of there's always good information available. If you can get past, the controversy that maybe surrounds it, you can get to the heart of what is being said. And just because, different people have different things around them, it doesn't mean what they're saying is nonsense either. So there's value, and that's kind of like I was saying, when you turn all that into itself, people that might seem maybe far out on one side of the spectrum, the original or the concepts, if you kind of get past their daily position and listen to what they're saying, there could well be value in what they have to say. And that applies to everything, though. It doesn't just apply to Jeet Kune Do.
Right.
You've got to be able to get past it to take the value of it, and that's almost like the Inosanto filter. He can look at a system that people might look at and go, it's a load of nonsense, and he'll take something away from it, and he'll distill it, and he'll give you it. It might only be one thing.
Did you ever hear him tell the story about that? Because he and Bruce Lee were looking at something, and he started to criticize it. And Bruce Lee said, "Yeah, but did you see that one thing? Did you ever hear that story?"
No. I've not.
Yeah.
No, go. What was it? Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I'll have to make it up because I don't know the intimate details of. But let's say they're watching some demonstration, a martial art demonstration, and Inosanto is being critical of it because back then that's what you did. You criticize, the classical stuff and what have you, right? And Bruce Lee says, "Yeah, but did you see how he did that one thing?" So maybe you throw away 99% of it, but 1% of it you learned something from it, which goes back then to the whole idea of everything being an opportunity to learn. And in Asano's philosophy, that's how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with Daniel Lanero.
Mm-hmm.
I'm under Daniel as well. Me and Peter are under his program, the XTMA program, and Daniel's very much like that. He'll guide you into sort of not being so scathing about something, but say what is the value of it. I mean, I remember we were talking about like a religious thing.
Yeah.
And he turned around to me and he kind of said, religion's a little bit like a blade. So the blade can kill, but it can also be used to sow the crops. When you cut the crops down. So it's not necessarily the blade that's the bad thing. It's how it's used.
Right.
And he gave me that kind of lesson in terms of just having a bit more of an open mind and looking at kind of how things can be seen from both sides. So again, it's just teaching you to not cut your nose off to spite your face, really.
Right. Yeah.
It's looking at things in terms of what could be learned out of this, and maybe there's only one thing, maybe there's only a small thing. But at the same time, could be something quite significant as well for you.
Yeah. Well, I think that's definitely part of the recipe for continuous growth. Is always being on the lookout for what there is to learn, as opposed to, I don't know, the opposite of that, thinking, well, there's nothing there. I mean, how do you know? All right. I wanted to start to wrap this up, and I wanted to ask you about two things. One, you guys have an active fight team, right? A competitive team, correct?
It's at different stages we've had Thai boxing, MMA, and a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu kind of team. And it kind of goes in. We've moved to the new academy, so it's kind of taken a bit of a dip just now. But we've had some pretty good fighters in our time. We've fought ourselves. One of the requirements to get under mark is that you need to fight. So you need to have gone in the ring. So we've all done our, maybe you've not gone into a whole fight career sort of thing, but
right.
we've all fought in the ring. We've all done a few fights. It gives you that understanding when you do start to teach people and coach people for fighting, because you've kind of been there, so you've got that value. So we've got the last major fight we had with one of our students, female fighter in MMA. She won her first MMA fight, and we were kind of building that. But then we were going into some other fights, and COVID kind of struck, so we've kind of been set back a little bit.
Yeah.
But we've had some good fighters over the years. Some good Thai boxing.
Nice.
And I think it's part of what we want to do with the academy. But we've always said that the academy is open for everybody. You don't have to fight. If you want to fight, you kind of need to meet some prerequisites of ours,
right.
In order to do that.
Okay.
We're not one of these gyms that have somebody turn up and come in and I want to be a UFC guy. you know, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Or an MMA guy. Yeah, we've all seen that, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, and then we go, right, we'll give you 3 weeks training and shove you in a cage. There's a build up to it, and you know, it takes a bit of resourcing from the, you know, people in their spare time to go down to the fights and corner and coach and all those kind of things. So we look for a certain amount of commitment from them first, and
Right.
we're also trying to look for their safety. Some people have no idea, you know. It's like, so they don't realize how badly hurt you could get in a situation. So they need to do the relevant training, and we insist upon that. But then when somebody does that, we take care of them, and we do the whole thing with them. We put them, you know, all they do is concentrate on their training and turning up for the fight, and we take care of everything else. And put them there.
I call it behaving like a pro, even if you're going to fight amateur.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because the danger is the same.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay, so I gotta show you this. The second I saw that, I go, oh, I knew it was you, right? But I go, oh, Neil and Rachel McLeod.
Oh, what's this?
Can you see it?
Oh yeah, me and Tuki. Yeah.
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 Right. So I wanted to ask you about that and this. I think we should wrap this up on these two notes.
Yeah. Well, that's Tuki. That's my wife. She trains with us as well. She's one of our instructors. She's actually under Guru Dan now. So we went out to Rome in 2020, just before it all struck. Actually, it was the last trip probably Guru did to Europe before COVID struck, and Tuki went on to the program. She's done the UFA test under Mark McFan, and she's one of my training partners, and she just gets stuck in. So the first picture was we were doing some training in the gym during the COVID time, and we were doing the 15 count, but we were doing it against each other, so we were kind of like a sort of Lin Churn sort of idea. Right. And we just filmed it, and we just put it up to sort of try and inspire people to get some training done whilst we're in lockdown. Okay. And yeah, it was just good fun. We just did some Thai boxing. So that one, and then the other picture is we were out in Sardinia at the XTMA summer camp. I think that was 2019. So we were doing some training with Daniel and Marie, and the rest of the guys in Europe, and some of the guys that come over from the States. And that was good. It was really hot, actually, and it was the first time we'd been to Sardinia. So we did like an instructor's camp there, and then this was the last day before we got back. It was just roasting sort of thing. So I did the Photoshop thing with Alicia and Tuki, just messing about. Alicia does training as well. She's already started. She does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Thai boxing.
Wow.
My wife teaches we've got loads of kids in the academy, and we've just recently opened up again. And she predominantly, I mean, we've got people to help us, but she runs the kids program. Yeah. And we do all the Thai boxing. We kind of just do Thai boxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because they're kind of like major movement, you know, like kickboxing kind of stuff, and then grappling kind of stuff, and then as they get older we can go into the nuances of you know, the different arts and pull it towards maybe the Jeet Kune Do a little bit. But you know, you get kids rolling around doing BJJ, and you know, Alicia's just loves it. But I mean, she's been brought up with it. She's got no choice.
Right. she doesn't know a different. She doesn't know any
better,
right? Yeah. Now
my brother's kids are the same as well. We've got, my nephew, in fact, he's 7, and he's been at Naga and everything for the jiu-jitsu. He's got gold medals and silver medals. So he loves competing in Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And then his little sister, Amber, she's been doing the same.
Yeah.
So it's a whole family.
Yeah, but see, so again, right? We talk about connections and commonalities and what have you. I could be talking to, instead of Leigh Richardson, I could be talking to Burton Richardson, and he would say the same thing about his daughter.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I know. I don't know Burton other than through the internet.
Right.
But Burton was one of the people that kind of drew me to Jeet Kune Do in the first place.
Yeah.
But possibly because of the name, because he's got the same surname.
Oh no. Just when we were wrapping up. Hang on, guys. Let me.
Sorry?
Yeah. Okay. No, you froze for a second there.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I was just saying. Burton was one of the people that represented what Jeet Kune Do kind of meant to me in the early days when I didn't know anything really.
Yeah.
And he was like such a complete martial artist in every way, with the Kali and the kickboxing and just everything. And to me, I set a goal to myself back then that I wanted to try and strive to be like that. Yes. Because the full instructor, it just seems so out of reach, but it was something good to strive for because there was, a few people that had done it. And then many years later, I started to talk to Burton on Facebook, and we've had a few conversations, and he's a cool guy. He's just and his daughter. I've watched his daughter grow,
right,
just on Facebook, but she's growing into a real serious martial artist as well, sort of thing. So
he's an excellent role model for all of us.
Yeah. Just
all right. Okay, listen. Thank you very much for agreeing to do this. I have deduced that if I was to ask you who I should get on the program, it would be amongst bringing back Rick Young. I should reach out to Mark McFan and also to Ewan Campbell, correct?
Yeah, I would say so. I think you should get a hold of those guys.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Get a hold of my brother. Give him a good talking to as well.
Yeah, I'll ask him to stop opening his mouth and getting you in trouble.
Yeah.
All right.
He's got some good jiu-jitsu connections and stuff like that, and how it kind of relates to the whole Jeet Kune Do journey.
Yeah. See, this is the thing, right? See, sometimes people will say, "Oh, you didn't ask him about this, and you didn't ask him about that," and I'm like, "We don't have all night."
No. These sort of conversations we need some beer and we need to switch the camera off.
Yeah, right. So I mean, so I tell people, hey, there's always part 2 of any episode of the Jeet Kune Do dialogues.
Sure.
Always part 2. So thanks again, my friend. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. I'm really pleased that you asked me. So thank you.
All right. Okay. You take care.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Bye. All right. Thanks, Kenny.